6C, discuss the draft letter regarding water resources to be sent to the Truro Select Board. That's presented by Clerk Austin Miller, member Leslie Sandberg. Well, first say thank you for the draft. It was quite extensive.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Water has been an ongoing topic for this board, and in Provincetown, as it has been in Truro, as well as with the Water and Sewer Board. And, I've been thinking a lot about the December letter addressed to the Truro community that the Truro Select Board had sent out. And, some of the insinuations there, I'm sure it's no secret to folks here that in my personal capacity, I also filed an open meeting law complaint against the Truro Select Board, and they subsequently released the minutes from the session where they discussed that letter. And those reflected that they were considering pursuing a pathway of independent well sites and, in support of the Walsh property and development at Walsh. And subsequent to that, there have been ongoing staff level conversations on, making progress between the two towns on water issues. I felt like, given the fact that Truro is now proposing to move forward with these next two sessions, the one on June 4th that was mentioned in the TM report, as well as the one on June 24th, that it would be an important time for us as a select board to put forward our perspective on the issue, to speak, on behalf of town administration, and to really try to extend an olive branch to the Truro Select Board to be able to identify a path forward, while also ensuring that we're protecting the Panhandlands for future generations, as well as protecting our existing water users, which, by the way, include users of both Provincetown and Truro. And so I tried to put together a, as the chair suggested, comprehensive letter that covers a lot of different topics that are sort of in flight right now, framing it around conservation, framing it around support of housing goals. And I think one thing that I really tried to emphasize in this letter is that housing and that support of our natural resources and conservation are not mutually exclusive goals. They can be sort of one together, if you will. And I think that really preserving the portion of the Walsh property for a potential future well site is a generational opportunity that, I would hate to see squandered in the way that I believe, Truro has proposed to do so at this time. And so I think this letter, I hoped to strike a balance with the help of Member Sandberg in drafting it, in, being clear and stern about our perspective, while also being conciliatory as much as we can, and trying to work with them from their perspective as much as we can.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to thank you, Austin, for the draft you did, and I came in and I reviewed it, and my point of view, I shared everything that Austin has just said. I'm not going to go over that again, but I was concerned, and I have been concerned for a long time, about the public conversation that's one-sided. And so I basically found out that there was a sewer board meeting on May 13th that had on its agenda item water demand management and growth management. And I was like, what is that? So I was talking to Jim Vincent, and he explained that, basically it was put on by one of the members because they wanted to evaluate the water demand. And so, which they can do. But I decided to go back and look at some of the minutes of the meeting, and to get a better idea of the scope of what they were looking at. And basically, I want to make the point that the Sewer and Water Board does have authority to evaluate current and future demand impacts in both water and sewer systems. But my goal was to better understand the scope of what their interest was in water demands and how it relates to information included in our growth management report. Because I think it's pretty clear that we have our water demands handled and reported, and they're very, very spot, if you will. I reviewed the past meetings for guidance. I saw that a Water and Sewer Board member commented in the February 12th meeting that they wanted a substantive discussion on demand management, as well as topics like desalinization and encouraging conservation and reuse of water. Okay. Then I saw again that water demand was discussed on the April 8th Water and Sewer Board meeting minutes. And it was a Truro Board member expressed concern that Article 36 at the Provincetown Town Meeting was approved without Water and Sewer Board being consulted, even though it could affect future water use and system capacity. That was not the goal of that article. The article was actually just to reallocate gallons that we had. She asked for water demand planning to be added to the upcoming meeting agenda, and that was what we're back to May 13th. Given the ongoing comments about the demand, I thought it would be a good opportunity to present our recent growth management bylaw report. Turned out to be a good thing. We started with the basics. We let them know that Provincetown had a growth management bylaw in place since 1986, and that the purpose of this is to maintain the rate of development in a planned manner to provide adequate public services and facilities to meet the needs of its current and future population without overburdening natural resources with respect to potable water, wastewater, and solid waste disposal. There is no understanding from anyone on the board except for the chair that the growth management bylaw has existed since 1986. That includes the Provincetown members. Tim Famolari, our Community Development Director, attended the meeting and described that the bylaw had 4 categories to assign gallons. And these aren't in any order. They're just market rate, residential units and new bedrooms, affordable and community housing, year-round deed-restricted housing and ADUs, and gallons for economic development. That's how we organize our growth bylaw. Tim then shared with this, something that you're all very aware of, and Danny, you will become aware of. He shared the water demand forecast. And that's basically in 2023, a 4-year water systems demand forecast was conducted as part of a Provincetown and Truro combined water system demands assessment. The assessment focused on summer season demand as the peak season places the highest stress on the system. The forecast projected the total water gallons for the 2 towns would be 85,300 gallons through 2027. At the March 26, 2026 meeting for the Provincetown Select Board, during the annual growth management water demand report, which we get annually, it turned out that of the 85,300 gallons allocated, only 19,185 had been used. So, at the beginning of 2026, the usage rate was 77.5% below 2023 projections. We also explained that when there's a change of a use of property, depending on that change, gallons could come back to the town to be recycled. I then informed them that the Select Board is prioritizing gallons for affordable and community housing, and as a part of that commitment, for the next year, no new gallons will be used for market rate residential housing. The information was welcomed. In fact, they were a little shocked. I then encouraged, seeing an opportunity, as I like to do, I encouraged the Water and Sewer Board to consider working with Truro to evaluate future water demand that Truro will need for fire suppression, to mitigate private wells that might be polluted by PFAS, meaning how many wells do you have and what happens if PFAS comes your way, and for future housing projects beyond the Walsh property, which is included with the water demand forecast, like the Truro Motor Lodge. In their recent town meeting, they passed some funding for developing the planning for the Truro Motor Lodge, including water. So my takeaway from the meeting was that it was clear to me we need to talk more about what Provincetown has done to be good stewards of our natural resources. We are a densely packed former whaling village. So without explaining the efforts the town makes toward conservation, people are left to speculate about our decisions. And it's never good to let people draw their own conclusions without proper information, in my opinion. Tonight's letter is important because it will reaffirm our commitment to the goals both communities share, including long-term water security, support for much-needed affordable and community housing, and the regional environmental stewardship of the Pamet lens for future generations. It also highlights our town's growth management bylaw. We are asking for your support of our colleagues to approve the letter to the Truro Select Board. My hope is that the Truro Select Board responds positively in a positive way to our letter, as it's time to break through the current impasse. Thanks for letting me make my comments. Any questions, Douglas? You want?
I don't know, are there any edits for the letter? Any comments from staff?
I was just going to thank Austin and Leslie, and I know town staff, Cody and Jim in particular, were grateful for the opportunity to take a look at it, and really appreciated the support and perspective from the select board. So just wanted to echo what they've said.
Thank you. I really appreciated the input from Cody and Jim. They were instrumental in helping fact check this. So thank you.
And I was grateful to, when they said, we're having trouble at the Water and Sewer Board, I said, so do you want a select board member to come just to sit there, maybe make some comments? They said yes, so I was happy to do that for them.
Yeah.
So, assuming we pass this tonight, I think it's a great opportunity for us to speak as one voice on behalf of the town and hopefully drive the conversation forward.
Shall we?
I move that the select board vote to approve and send the letter from the Provincetown Select Board to the Truro Select Board regarding shared water resources as presented.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Sounds like the motion carries 5-0-0.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for
I
your support.
appreciate it.
So how will this be delivered? Is it going to be sent electronically and by mail?
Okay.
Could you also?
Well, I
send
would
it-
think it should, since they have a meeting June 4th, it would be nice if it was received. I think you could email them a version as well.
Do they have an
Yeah.
executive secretary?
No.
Then could we,
Um,
well, if not.
Pretty much the town
Okay, no.
manager does the
All right,
packets. and-
send it to the, if you would send it to all of them in their emails also, with, and say with a paper copy to follow.
Yeah, I think that would be good. Do you happen to know the person who checks their mail?
No, yeah, exactly. I know that a couple will get it, so.
Yeah. And then separately, and on this item, there was this memo included from Jim and Cody. Is there additional context that you guys wanted to share on that, or?
Sorry, I missed that. Sorry.
Oh, I was just saying, it, also in this item on the packet, there's included this memo to Kelly from Jim and Cody, and so I wasn't sure if you wanted to share any additional.
I could give you insight if that's all right, because it came as a response. This memorandum is a response to the fact that Truro, the Truro member said, well, we haven't heard from Provincetown. And I said, well, I thought I heard that there was conversations going back and forth with our chair. And she said, we haven't heard anything, so that's why we're going our own way. And then Jim said, well, in that letter in December, there was it was noted by the town manager that basically we were going to get more wastewater information, and that's what we've been waiting for. There was a back and forth about whether that information was in or was not in. And so afterwards, Jim decided that he wanted to clarify the misunderstanding and say, this is exactly what we were looking for, just to show that we are making communication and that this is where we stand. And it was done in a way just to say, we'd like the wastewater information that we believe was supposed to be sent our way.
Okay. Yeah,
And
just
I will say that I was asked for a joint meeting, and I had said, well, we don't even have the information to have a joint meeting. There's no point in us meeting without this information.
Well, I mentioned that you talked, and eventually the person at first said no, and then she said, well, I did reach out. So it was a little bit of a, anyway.
And they were a little miffed that I was taking our staff's recommendations on what things were still needed for the meeting rather than just meeting.
Well, now we have it in a letter from
Yeah, exactly, so,
So
Hopefully
I'm
the-
just going to,
no, thank you for
Make sure that's
clarifying that,
clear.
I appreciate that, I'm glad you said something,
Eh.
but that's what this was for.
we have
just
a
to
very
cover
well
ourselves.
experienced, well-paid staff to do their jobs, and I rely on their expertise for what they do.
And they're very good at it, and they care. They're not caring just about our town, they're caring about Truro, and one of them happens to live in Truro. So there is that camaraderie and wanting to be collaborative.
And we have a responsibility to the users of our system, which include users within the town of Truro. And,
Yeah.
I would hope their leaders recognize that those are also their constituents too. So, to your point about a meeting or a potential future meeting, I don't really see it as being productive to sit down and try to sort of fight this out, if you will, because then it's just, a battle of personalities, if you will, and I just don't see that as being a productive path forward. And so I would rather us take a deliberative approach where we're able to deliberate as a body, come up with our perspective, share our perspective, and wait and see how they respond and see where we can identify a path forward. Because if we don't have a clear agenda for that meeting, I think it's going to devolve quickly
Oh, yeah.
and not be productive.
Yeah, we don't. We've seen that, and I agree with you on that.
So that was why I included the thing about the joint resolutions of, let's agree on a framework and then we can meet.
Agree.
And thank you for raising this. I'll make sure that Jim sends the memo tomorrow now that we've had this discussion.
Great, thank you.
Anything else on that one?
I'm just hopeful that they will include Apex in these 2 sessions at minimum because, as we point out in the letter, that is our joint consultant for us on water. And, the fact that they've not included them, I think is disappointing and speaks to the fact that, if they really want to be listening to the experts, I think those are the experts in addition to, our staff who run the system.
Well, and also remember too, we don't know what it was that they asked the consultants that they have to look for. And engineers will look for what they're asked for. And so I think you're right. I think we have to have the perspective of let's put all the consultants out there and have a conversation from them and see where we go with there. So,
Thank you for all your work on the letter.